Y'all saw it, and I recorded today. How's everybody doing? Good, good. I was telling Mike, and I thought a few of you, I think, already this, but my coffee maker at home broke this morning, so I've been here since 8, and I'm on my second cup of coffee. So you see me bouncing off the walls, that's why. It's also, I think all of you, I don't know if you're in Bold, but one of the things we were talking about in Bold last week when we were doing the new habits or a couple of habits that you can implement right away. One of the ones our table came up with that we didn't share, we just came up with it, was to wake up 15 minutes earlier than we normally do. We started to say a time, but every one of us wakes up at a different hour. So it was like, how about we just bump that 15 minutes? Because imagine what just getting out of bed 15 minutes earlier could do for your day. And I'm going on like day 4 or 5 of doing that now. And it's pretty amazing. Just that extra 15 minutes. Like I just move quicker. I feel like now it stinks the first couple of days waking up. I'm moving kind of in slow motion, but as the day gets going, I'm getting a lot more done. So it's been kind of nice. I got to the office at like 8:05 this morning. Nobody was here. I was able to just go in my office and start making calls. So it's kind of nice when you start group coaching. You've already done 4 or 5 of your lead gen calls today. So, all right, cool. We're going to talk about a couple different things today. I'm going to show the agenda here in a second. And we're going to use our notebooks. So, as you know, I like to start with a mindset refresher. It's almost always a bold law. It will be a bold law until I run out of all 38 of them, and then I'll have to do something else. Good news is that's almost a year from now, so I got some time. This is one of my favorites. It's something I think about often. I was on a coaching call yesterday with the other PC agents, and one of the other PC agents said, I feel like we're battling a front at both ends or two ends, double-edged sword, whatever analogy you want to give. Right now, there's all the NAR settlement kind of regulatory changes that are happening in the market or have happened, and the market's shifting. Homes are sitting a little bit longer, albeit they're still selling in 11 days on market on average, which is still ridiculously fast, and prices are still increasing. It's just a little bit more difficult now to sell a house. And one of the coaches said, how do you stay encouraged, or how do you keep your mindset fresh and positive, especially in our role when we're in charge of coaching others? And a couple people chimed in. And one of the things that I said is it's easiest to encourage other people when you're encouraging yourself first, or when you're encouraged first. Almost every single day, and I say almost because I don't always do it on the weekends, I definitely do it Monday through Friday. I listen to some sort of real estate podcast based on either the MREA, Brian Buffini, or Tom Ferry. Those are the three that I kind of cycle between. Every now and then I'll sprinkle in another KW one, except those three usually get me through the week. And a lot of what that is so I can keep my mindset in a positive manner. The other thing is if I'm listening to a coaching call in the morning, it puts me in the right mindset to go to work and start making phone calls. And so one of the things that I heard this morning on Buffini's is the market's going to go up and down. No matter what we do, it's going to do that. It's going to be a buyer's market, a seller's market in between, buyer's market, seller's market in between. It's going to be a crappy market. It's going to be a good market. It's going to do all of those things. What can we control regardless of what the market's doing? One of those things is our activities. Another one of those things is our mindset. We talked about this in Bold last week. You can choose to be happy. Now, happy doesn't mean sunshine and rainbows and everything. You can be upset about certain things. You can't let it influence you or control your mindset throughout the rest of the day. Now, the way we focus on that and the way we continue to grow is by proactive action every single day. And so whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's reading your Bible or your religious textbooks, whether it's going to meetings, whether it's praying, whether it's meditation, whether it's fitness, whether it's all of the above, you want to work on yourself a little bit each day, no matter what. And I promise you, the more you are growing and working on yourself, the more opportunity will come your way in your business. And it also lifts the lid on how much your business can grow. And that's exactly what this bold law is talking about. Your business will grow to the extent that you do. If you get stuck in your ways and you only want to do the same thing over and over again and your mindset never changes, your business is never going to change either. Or it's going to change at a much slower rate. So let's talk about our agenda today. Those of you that were here last week, we talked about our own GPS. We're going to go in detail on that today. I'm also going to show you the updated productivity coaching GPS that I finished yesterday and submitted to leadership for approval. It's going to look a lot different than last week's because I totally redid it. And that's the whole point of that, is how to get to our goals as a group. It's not just me and my goals up here. I want everybody involved in the same thing as a collaborative approach. Why did my computer go to sleep? No, it didn't work. I recorded this week though. And part of why we're kind of double dipping today and going back over the GPS is because I know it didn't record last week, which is getting us to number 3. We're going to talk a little bit more about the passport. If you didn't get a passport last week, I have one extra copy. I don't know where my other copies went. I will find them. It is also in that Excel sheet that I shared at the beginning of PC, called PC or Productivity Coaching. So that one that has kind of all the different tabs at the bottom, one of them says Passport. Another one says Syllabus, and it's completely blank. Don't worry about that. I'm working on it. Passport, this is essentially your first 90 days licensed. Now, if you've been licensed longer than 90 days, that's okay because the passport just came out. We're going to work on it, and we're going to go through it together and make sure you're hitting the key items off of that passport. A goal is 100% completed, and you'll see that when it comes up on the GPS later, the PC GPS. So let's talk GPS. Our GPS, and those of you that have your 5-subject notebook, you can flip to the first page. It is under lead generation, your first tab. That's okay. That's okay. Let's do it on a blank piece of paper now. I just want you to be able to write as we're going. Yeah, get back of that. The first tab is lead generation. Now, technically, your GPS could also go into growth. However, I want you to put it in lead generation on that first page that you open up because I want it to be top of mind. Now, we have a couple of different tools we use at Keller Williams. 2 of the most common are GPS and 411. Excuse me. You'll also hear GPS called a 135. This is what it stands for. 1 goal, 3 priorities that help us get to that goal, and 5 strategies under each priority. It doesn't have to be 5. The goal is 5. Sometimes you see 3. Sometimes you see 4. The goal is 5. We try not to get above 5 because then a lot of times you're not going to get them finished. So today, my goal for everyone in this room and anybody that watches the recording is that you can walk out of here with a draft or a final edition of your GPS for 2025. Now, technically, that starts now. It's really 12 months of business. So your goal at the top, your number 1, is going to be your unit goal for the year. It's not a dollar amount or a volume amount. It's a unit goal. We cannot control our average sales price within reason. To put it a little bit more clearly, if I have a buyer that's pre-approved and wants to buy a house and they call me to buy a house, I'm going to work with them regardless of what their budget is. If they're pre-approved for $300,000 or $800,000, I'm still going to work with them. They're still going to be my client. So I can guarantee 1 unit. I can't necessarily guarantee what their average sales price is. That's based on their circumstances and what they can control, not what I can control. Same thing with the seller. The listing is worth what the market value says it's worth. It's not up to me. So we always make a goal in terms of units or transactions, and that's closed units. Now, 3 priorities. Good news is, if you're in PC, I've done 2 of them for you. We've talked about this a lot in the last couple of weeks. 75% at a minimum or at an average of all transactions for mega agents come from 2 lead sources, your database and open houses. So your first 2 priorities are database and open houses. Your third priority is going to be something of your choosing. We'll talk about examples here in a little bit, especially once you see the PC's GPS, it'll make more sense. Foreshadowing moment here. The PC's GPS, one of them is talking about agent lead generation, one of the priorities, and it's these 2 categories in the agent lead generation category. So my job as your coach is for you to nail these 2 priorities. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it, where you can sell at a minimum 25 houses a year. 25. Yeah. Really, it's 36. We're going to say 25. KW says 36 because their head's in the sand a little bit. Part of that also is when the MREA was written and when the PC curriculum was written, that 36 transaction was at an average sales price of 250. Our average sales price in our market is 400. So 25 deals at 400,000 is about the same volume as 36 deals at 250. Now, me personally, I would rather sell less houses for the same amount of money versus more houses for the same amount of money. So we're going to talk about options for number 3 here in a second. But what I want to focus on first is what priorities can we be doing in each of these, or what strategies can we be doing in each of these areas to nail these priorities. So under sphere of influence, you're going to have 5 different priorities. And sphere of influence is the same thing as your database. Writing kind of upside down now. This is difficult. So we're going to have 5 of each of these. Number 1 is going to be putting people in command or into your database. It's going to be having a database. Now, the sweet spot for this is 200. I'm going to share an email with everybody later today with it's called a database memory jogger. And it basically gives you all these different positions and titles of people. And you're supposed to go through, like, who's your dentist? Write it down. Who's your doctor? Write it down. Who's your accountant? Write it down. Who's your gardener? Write it down. And if you don't have somebody, it's an opportunity to go meet somebody in those roles. If you do have somebody, it's an opportunity for you to connect with them and add them to your database. So it's called a memory jogger. It's ways that you can add to the database. So the first one is going to be 200 contacts into command. Let me do this. Now, we've talked about this before. Number 2 on here is going to vary a little bit per agent, because really 2, 3, and 4 are kind of the same thing. It's building a communication plan. How are we going to stay in touch with these people? Rather than just writing 36 touch, I'm going to start putting these actual activities in here. So the first one, and really it's 2 or 3, is implement DTD2. For those of you that do not remember, it's do the database. The 2 stands for the second edition. So this is that PC tab that I mentioned to everybody that I shared before. If you come down here, the passport's right here. And I don't know why there's so many sheets. This is the original GPS we talked about as far as systems, tools, and people. I will also show you my GPS later. I have to pull it up. This is a blank one for you to start doing yours. So what? Yep. Ow! So what I want you guys to do is when you come in here to do it, just copy and paste this into a fresh sheet, or download a copy and write it that way. Then when we do our one-on-ones, or just in general, if you want to just email it to me or text it to me, we'll go from there. If you write it in here, if somebody else goes and edits this, they're going to delete yours. So we don't want to overlap that way. It's more of a template. So this is the PCs one that we're going to talk about here in a second. I just wanted you guys to see what that was. So I'm going to come back over here. So now DTD2, do the database twice, do the database second edition. That is referring to how you're going to call your people. Now there's a template or a schedule. I'm going to put it in the sheet so you can see it. It's basically they're taking 2 letters at a time and adding them each week. And it's 13 weeks long, and then it repeats 4 times a year. So that's your 4 quarterly calls that we've talked about out of the database in the 36 touch. So all this really means for DTD2 is call your people. Now the point of DTD2 is to eliminate call bias. It's so we're not pulling up our command and going, I'm going to call John today because I like talking to John. Or tomorrow, I'm going to call Mike today because Mike's always easy to talk to. Now this week's letters are H and V. H and V, some people have a lot of H and Vs, some people don't. I only have 2 people with the last name V in my database, and I have about 100 with the last name H. So most of my week is calling people with the last name H. It's not V. And that's okay. The way these letters got paired up is it's meant to kind of divvy it up where it's an even distribution throughout the quarter. So then you call, and some of them are meant to be intentionally paired together. So like P and L are together, profit and loss. It's just little macronyms or ways to remember these things. Huh? A and W. I don't remember why we said that one. Oh, yeah, well, that's dumb. I don't like root beer. So, but there's a couple different ones like that that are paired together. Now, H and V, I couldn't tell you why those are paired together, I guess because of high velocity or something like that. It's something like an HV. But regardless, you don't necessarily have to memorize what letters are each time. There's a schedule that you follow. I have it sitting on my desk downstairs where I look at it every week. I come in here and I pull it up and I start making the calls in command. Now, you can call people more than 4 times a year. And we'll talk about some of that in other coaching sessions. But like, for example, if somebody's raised their hand and they want to be a buyer with me, they're getting called way more often than 4 times. And when I say call, this can also be text. It's not email though. It's call or text. Technically, it can be social media message if those of you are in bold. However, the point of messaging them on social media is to book an appointment or to get their number so I can call them. I don't want to have to just only interact with them on Facebook or Instagram. They're probably not going to buy or sell with me if that's the case. Now, you'll see on the PC thing later, my goal is for you to get to the point where you're calling people 3 days a week. The DTD2 3 days a week. The reason why is it allows for 2 days where you can do lead follow-up. You can follow up with your pipeline. You can follow up with the people that left you a message when they called you back. You can follow up with your open houses, which we'll talk about in a second, etc. Typically, it looks like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm doing DTD2s. Tuesday, Thursday, I'm doing lead follow-up. Typically. Occasionally, right now, because I'm in bold, it looks like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are DTD2, Thursday, Friday are lead follow-up. Find a schedule that works for you. If you're a dual career, you may not be working real estate 5 days a week. The goal is to get to 3. Another thing we were talking about kind of before the start of class is what's called a bold 100, where you make 100 contacts conversations in a single day. If you're doing 100 conversations in one day, especially if it's DTD2, it's probably not because you're doing 100 of them. If you're doing 100 conversations in one day, you don't necessarily need to make calls the other 2 days. You've done 100. Most of your other days are going to be following up with those people. Whether they left you a message, you're playing phone tag, etc. Maybe they asked for feedback on something, you're getting the information, going back to them, etc. So think about calls here. The minimum or the goal is to get to 3 days a week. It can also be 5. It can also be 2. It kind of depends on your world, and that's why this is your GPS. Now, remember, the goal here is we're shooting. My pen is dying. We're shooting for this 25 to 36 window. That doesn't look any better. So if you want to do more than 36 units in a single calendar year, you're probably going to have to make more phone calls. You're definitely going to have more than 200 people in your database. What I would recommend is that this be something to grow this. Now, this will technically grow this. We talked about that in detail yesterday. If you haven't watched the recording, go watch it. It's a good one. However, this should also be a strategy to work this. This could be door knocking. Because door knocking, you can do 50 different ways. You can knock on expireds. You can knock on for sale by owners. You can circle prospect for open houses. You can farm a neighborhood. You can door knock for the hell of door knocking. There's all kinds of reasons you can door knock. And so this could be door knocking. All that's going to grow your database. This could also be networking, meaning you join a networking group and you meet with them regularly. This could be investors. You go to investor meetups. You start targeting delinquent properties. This could be social media. You're going to have certain strategies that you do under social media. We'll talk about C in more detail another time. So remember, this is kind of the goal. So everything we're doing is based off of trying to target that area. Now, number 3 is monthly newsletter. Everyone in this room should have a monthly newsletter, and they should be sending it to their database. Now, part of why is because They're already made for you in Command. All you got to do is personalize them. I've also shared mine with you, and I will do it again if you want to copy and paste and rip and duplicate mine. I'm totally okay with that. Go ahead. No, you're fine. That's what we're here for. You shouldn't. So there's a couple different ways to go about doing that. I have used, if you Google free email signatures, there's plenty of options out there, and I always use something of that sort, and then I make it, and then I download it, and then I add it as an image to my email or my Gmail. Now, when it comes to Command, when you're sending emails out of Command, I can show you guys how to do this at the end if we have time. There's a way you can create your signature to save it as like a template. Now, it's not going to show the same images, etc. But for example, if you've gotten an email from me, my email signature looks pretty much the same. The PC one's a little bit different because they made that. My personal one, I'll pull it up right now. Yeah. So like this is my email signature. So anytime it gets an email, this is attached at the bottom of it. Now, if I go to send something out of Command, it's basically this. It doesn't include the calendar link and it doesn't include the image because it just doesn't like doing that. Now in Command, I've saved it as what's called signature, or I call it Sig1. It's a template. So when I'm typing out an email in Command, no matter how many people I'm sending it to, I click the little signature button and then I click insert signature. And so it'll insert my signature on every email that I send out that batch. Every time I do that, I have to do that. So it's a little bit nuanced. Now, full disclosure, I'm not the most techie person in the world, and I'm sure there are shortcuts that Rachel can show us and do some of those Command trainings where she can implement a little bit more detail. Same thing with Scott Leroy. They can make your signature for you. I think you just email them and ask them, and they'll do it for you. We technically pay them a lot of money as a market center, so they should do that. And if not, let me know, and I'll yell at them. Now, at the same time, when you're creating this monthly newsletter, a one-pager is perfectly okay. You're trying to give them a little bit of value as well as stay top of mind. Let's see if I can. So I've showed you mine before. This is what mine looks like. One of the things I talked about on a previous call, these are my 4 keys for when you're on our team. This is kind of our tagline in a way. We show you when and how, you decide why, basically. Another way of saying this is we help you cover when and how, you decide what and why, or where and why is another way of putting it. This is what my newsletter looks like. Now, I've talked about this before with a little clipper. Every single month, I swap out the picture to something that I've sold. This part pretty much stays the same. This stays the same. The only thing that changes really is the bottom part here. Every month, this changes. And then you scroll to page 2. Every month, this changes. And then every quarter, this changes. This stays the same. And it goes out every single month to my database. Yeah, yeah. Especially your vendors that are an opportunity to refer you. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. If you use Title Alliance, or if you use Jackson, or if you use Neil and Harmony, they can't necessarily refer you business. However, they're still just as important to your business because they can make you look very good. As well as if you send them a potential lead, they can not only help convert that lead and get them pre-approved, they can make sure that lead calls you and not some other agent. So it is still important for you to pour value into them. The other thing that I like to do with my vendors is I will co-sponsor this with my vendors occasionally. So if Jackson's offering a hero grant, I might have the hero benefits here, and then I might have Jackson's info here talking about the grant that he's offering to heroes. And so we tie it together. Then he has the opportunity to send that to his database, to people that he wants to send it to. And so it's a kind of double dip factor there. When you're starting out, I highly recommend that. You can also partner with restaurants, coffee houses, donut shops, ice cream parlors, etc., and give away coupons in this newsletter. I call them sticky ads. So, for example, present this newsletter or show this piece of this ad off this newsletter and get $1 off your scoop of ice cream from Gelati Celesti. Go into Gelati, get permission for them to do that, and then put it in your newsletter that month. The cool thing there too is you have a automatic built-in tracking system for to see who's actually reading your newsletter. Because if they take that coupon to Gelati Celesti and they call you and say, hey, we had 7 people use your newsletter for $1 off last month, you can grow that. Uh-huh. Yeah, so I'll check with them. A lot of times they'll agree to give it to them. And something might be small. Like my brother owns a painting company. He already does free estimates. So I'm not going to come in here and put like, oh, free estimates if you call Highfield Painting. If you pull up their website, it says that all over the website. So they're going to be like, wait a minute. But what I will do is I'll get permission from him that'll say like, hey, we'll give $100 off if anybody shows the newsletter. It's better to get a permission from the vendor versus you try to cover it. And most vendors will do that and let them decide. Say, hey, I send a newsletter out, minimum of 200 people get it, however many people in your database. It goes out every single month. Would you be willing to feature something in there? We give a small discount and I'll feature in my newsletter. It's free advertising for them. And they don't pay anything unless somebody makes a sale. So it's my favorite type of advertising. We call it a cost of sale in here. It's the same reason why I'm so passionate about this coaching program. You guys don't pay me out of your pocket. You're not paying me every month to be your coach. You only pay me out of your sales, which is you making profit first, and then a piece of it pays your coach. That's important. That's called a cost of sale. It's a way we protect profit. So you want to have a monthly newsletter that goes out every single month. Now, the next 2 things, we'll get to this in a second. There it is. The next 2 things under SOI are kind of up to you. If you're one that likes to do a lot of face-to-face, put an appointment goal in here. Maybe it's take your A's out to coffee once a week. Now, if you only have 2 A's, that's going to get kind of redundant. So you might need to add more A's. So some of these will feed themselves. Now, one of the other tools we've talked about briefly that we're going to talk about more in detail moving forward is what's called a 411, which is 1 annual goal, 1 monthly goal, and 4 weekly strategies to get there. When your GPS is done, you're going to take this and say, okay, how do I actually make this happen? And every week you're going to have something to do. So if my goal is 200 contacts in my database and I have 100, I got a gap of 100. Every week I'm going to have a goal or an activity on my weekly 411 that says add XYZ to database. Now it might be 5, it might be 10, it might be 25, it might be 100, whatever it is. You're going to say each week I got to add this many people in my database. So then week 1, you say, okay, I got to add 5 people in my database. At the end of the week, you can look back at that 411 and go, did I add 5 people? Yes, check. Did I not? No. How many did I add? 2. Okay, next week I got to add 8. And it moves over to week 2. Week 2, I got to add 8. Did I add 8? Yeah, sweet. Move on. Week 3, I'm back to 5. And then they compound on each other. Then month of October is done. You can go look at all 4 weeks, see how your activities went. If DTD2 calls are on there, this should also be based on number of calls it takes to get to an appointment and number of appointments it takes to get to a deal. We've talked about this before. On average for new agents, it's about 20 to 25 contacts to get to an appointment, which is where we get that 20 to 25 calls a day. So if we have to make 20 calls a day, I haven't seen him. He usually comes in late. Yeah, he usually comes to sales meeting. So if your goal is to make 100 contacts a week, break that into daily goals. X amount of calls every single day. That could also be a part of your DTD2. The more specific and measurable these strategies can be, the better. That'll make more sense when I show the PC one here in a second. The more specific you can be. So don't just put 200 contacts in my database. Give yourself a deadline. I want to have 200 contacts in my database by the end of 2024. Then you can boost that number. Then you can say, I want to add 100 people to my database by midway through 2025. Then you can shrink it down and give yourself actionable items. Back to our beginning slide where we talked about that mindset piece. When you start checking these things off, it's a real easy way to stay motivated. That passport is meant to be a tool for you to look at and go, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I don't feel like I'm just sitting in a classroom with my coach talking to me and going, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? You have physical activities. You're like, oh, I did that. Okay, I did that. I feel myself making progress. It can take some time to get a deal under contract. Typically, it comes in threes. I like to tell this story a lot. When I got my real estate license, I got it in May/June of 2012. I didn't sell a house until 2014. Now, that's not to scare you. I was in college. I was doing a lot of marketing and admin stuff. I went full time in June of 2014. My first contract came in November of 2014, and I sold 4 houses in November and December of 2014. So I did all those activities June, July, August, September, and then I started putting stuff under contract. So it takes a little bit of time to build momentum. Now, my job as your coach is to shrink that timeline down. I don't want it to take 90 days for you to get something under contract. I want you to get into production right away, which is why we focus on these two things. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So now the fifth thing under SOI. So we talked about this. This is going to be maybe number of contacts or number of appointments each week. I'm going to put APPTS. My handwriting is getting progressively worse. So that's going to be number of appointments. A fifth strategy, and this is going to kind of depend on what's going on over here, might be a way that you add, I don't like the way that looks, might be a way that you add to your database. Ow. So your fifth strategy might be meet one parent at kid's soccer game every game and get their contact information. Or it might be pop by one vendor each month to add to the newsletter. So these strategies can play off of each other. Does that make sense? I want to talk open houses, and I don't want to run out of time, so we have enough time because we're going to build a buyer presentation today. Now, open houses, typically these strategies will evolve a little bit as you're new. What I mean by that is your first 30 days as an agent, priority number one or strategy number one under open houses should be shadow 2 open houses. Shadow an experienced agent. Or a PC agent that's doing really well with it, that's okay too. Preferably it's an experienced agent first. So it might be shadow. After 30 days or after you've done that, it might be co-host, which would mean you're doing it with another PC agent. Once you've done 2 of those, then it might be host. Now it could be host 2, host 3, host 4, host 5, host 6, host 7, host 8 a month. Somewhere in that range, 2 to 8. If you want to do more than 8, that's fine. The more you do, you're going to limit your ability to do the mega open house system, which we talked about yesterday. Go watch the video. 2 to 8. So host, I'm going to put it like we've already shadowed, assuming we've already shadowed. We'll talk about more of that. Host 2 to 8 per month. Strategy number 2. I'm going to round down a little bit for those of you that were on the call yesterday. Minimum of 20 signs per open house. Strategy number 3, minimum of 40 doors knocked per open house. Those of you that were on the call yesterday, this should sound familiar. Number 4, a minimum of 1 social media video per open house, preferably live when you're there. Now, I'm intentionally leaving number 5 open on each of these strategies or priorities because I want you to start brainstorming and coming up with your own, and then we'll talk individually about what we think and how we can implement it and change it. It can change over time. You may get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm nailing these. Number 5 might be meet with an experienced agent once a week to produce the inventory to do these open houses at until you get into listing mode. Once you start getting your own listings, you might not need to do that anymore. You might have your own listings that you can do open houses on. So it's okay if this changes a little bit as the year goes on. That's my job as your coach, to reflect it with you. So this could be meet with experienced agents to find the inventory. Another way of putting this could be post that I'm available to host an open house by Tuesday of every week. One of the things we talked about on the call yesterday is do not wait until Friday, Saturday to say, is any houses open this week? Now, some of that falls on the agents as well, the experienced agents, which I'm going to be handling from the forefront, and we'll talk about that in a second. Another idea might be invite 20 neighbors to the open house per open house. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. Go watch the video yesterday. We talked about a lot of it. 30 balloons, giveaways, one partner at every open house, meaning a vendor. There's a lot you can put here. Now, instead of going through these 5 strategies, I'm going to give you a couple of options here. I'm going to write them on the other board and I'm going to flip them over. That number 3 could be for you. And I want you to work on developing that as your homework. So my goal for everybody between now and next week, whether you bring it back to group coaching or hopefully I will hear from you before then, you can send me an email or a text of your draft and we'll work through it together, is I want to have everybody's GPS. I want to have your unit goal, what your 3 priorities are, and 4 to 5 strategies under each. I am totally okay if you have these 4 and you say, Coach, I'm struggling to come up with a 5th one. Because I'll have that conversation with you, and we may not come up with a 5th one. If you nail these 4 things, you're going to have an awesome open house strategy or priority. That's okay, especially if you're nailing these. What I don't want to see is you add a 5th one and it take away the attention from this. If you're so worried about nailing 2 through 5 that you're only getting to 2 open houses a month, when you could drop number 5 and get to 3 or 4, I'd rather you do more open houses. Same thing with the signs. On our call yesterday, we said a minimum of 30 signs. 30 signs is a little expensive, and we'll talk about signs here in a little bit. I'd rather you aim for 20 and get 20. Don't aim for 30 and get to 10 and be discouraged. Let's get 20, and then we'll get to 30, especially once we start getting some business. Now, a couple of ideas. Oh, that's a permanent marker. That shouldn't be up there. Remember, number 3 should hopefully be a way to grow your database. It can also be a way to grow referrals. I want you to think about this is the priority and this is the system to get there. It's not necessarily tools. So let's backstep a second. Command is the tool. Command isn't on here necessarily. Now, that's where we know the context are going. However, command is the tool used to execute the system. Just like open houses. You might have a really cool open house sign-in sheet tool or app. That doesn't go on here. That's your tool to get there. Number 3, I'm going to write down a couple of options and then flip this around. Agent referrals, networking. I'm going to write door knocking, social media, expired listings, you could have agent referrals, you could have networking, you could have door knocking, you have social media, you can have expired FSBOs. That's probably a good amount. Maybe investors, but that kind of falls under networking. Does anybody have any others that's not on the list? Client events would be good. The only difference with client events, I would put that here. because your client events is a database touch. Now, good point on client events, part of why you have that notebook. You're going to basically take each page in your lead generation and put these down. Now, it might be like these two kind of go on the same page. Or you might have a page that says database plan. Like I have a page in my notebook that's my 36 touch plan, and it's all in there. Now, if you turn the page, there's a plan on what my Popeyes look like. You turn the page, there's a plan on my monthly newsletter. You turn the page, there's a plan on my agent newsletter. You turn the page, there's a page on client events and what client events look like. That's why we have that notebook, so we can build that kind of system out. The client events would make more sense to do it under database. I'm going to put database up here. Yep. Me personally? Mm-hmm. I would just tag them. So I use tags to sort everything. Everything's in the same place. Yep, everything's in the same place. So I'll illuminate this a little bit differently. This is my third priority, and my personal GPS. Really, it's my second priority because it's that important to me. I have roughly 500, 600 people in my command database. I have 800 people on LinkedIn. Probably 75% of the people on LinkedIn are agents. I have about 70, I just looked this morning, I already forgot the number, like 72, 73 agents in my command. So it's almost 10%, or it's over 10% of my database is agents. They're going to get a different touch plan. They're all in the same command, but if I pull up tags, I have a tag for agent and I have a tag for KW agent. And they get marketed to differently. KW agents are going to get stuff that speak our language. They're going to hear that, hey, I'm the productivity coach in our market center now. Matter of fact, one of my touches last week was, I'm the productivity coach. What's one thing you learned when you were in productivity coaching or new to the business that all of my agents should know? And I sent that to all of the KW agents that are in my database. And I'm getting a lot of responses over time. Now, if I said I'm the productivity coach, what's one thing you learned in PC when you were in PC to a non-KW agent, they're going to go, I don't know what that is. So it wouldn't make sense. So tags are meant to make your life easier with how you communicate. When you're in command, you can click filter at the top, click tags, and sort it that way. Here's another one. It's my favorite acronym in all of KW's world, MOFR. Make offer for immediate response. My MOFR is heroes. We talked about this briefly before. Anybody that's a local community service provider or a hero gets a piece of my commission. Right now, I have a very specific MOFR strategy where any deal I do the rest of the year, I'm donating a rug to one of the elementary schools that I work with because they need new area rugs in their classrooms. Everybody that's tagged hero in my database heard about that last week. And they're going to hear about it again this week. And they're going to hear about it again next week. Because I want their referrals, because I want them to be emotionally involved in that referral so they know that, hey, I'm donating to a school to give back. I'm not just asking for business. It's all tying cohesively together. Now, the only reason I know that they're a hero is because they're tagged as such in command. Those tags are important. Networking, door knocking, social media, expired or for sale by owners, and then MOFR would be a make offer for immediate response. Another MOFR, those of you that work with investors, or if you're just loaded, you can be cash offers. So call me today for a cash, no hassle offer on your home. That's a MOFR. We used to have a thing called KW offers. It's kind of slowed down right now because they ran out of money. It's being relaunched and revamped up, where it's just basically you can represent KW offers to pitch the house to be cash offer on. And then you can make the sale happen. It's a whole system, a whole other conversation for another day. But does that make sense? As kind of ideas for number 3. So again, I'm going to flip it again. I want everybody to work on their GPS. Your first one's database, your second one's open houses, your third one is something from that list. And then we'll have 3 to 5 strategies that execute that priority. By show of hands, who's heard of these 3 words before? Dependent, independent, or interdependent? Barbara, awesome. You've heard of it? So, dependent means you're solely depending on team or brokerage for all of your production. I'm talking in terms of real estate. Obviously, these words can be applied in other areas. So in terms of real estate, if I am on a team that does heavy Zillow leads and all of my business comes from Zillow, I am dependent on that team to make production happen. Independent would be the exact opposite. I'm on a team or I'm at a brokerage and everything I do is all based on what I do. I don't get anything or any value from my market center or my brokerage or my team. I just pay them a monthly split or a cap or a, per transaction split, and that's it. When I hear agents complain about their commission split, they are thinking this way. They're thinking independently. They're not looking at what value they can get from their brokerage or their team. Now, interdependent is blending the two, which is the KW model. Now, I share this for 2 reasons. Keller Williams is not the cheapest brokerage out there. And by cheapest, I mean we do not have the highest split. We do have a cap model, so we're not the most expensive out there. We also do not have mandatory desk fees or monthly fees, et cetera, aside from your E&O and your command check fee. That's different. Everywhere has those. They just hide them. However, there are certain things that you can get value out of this brokerage that if you're not doing, it's going to make it more costly to be here. Now, one of my favorite things is what you all are already doing. You're a part of the coaching program. And we do not kick you out of this coaching program. You opt in. Now, it is required for your first 4 transactions. After that, you can opt in. So if you're getting value from the coaching program, you can choose to stay in the coaching program and pay 10% per deal in groups of 4. A lot of people stay until about 8 transactions. Then they feel comfortable enough to do one of 3 things. They either cap, they join a team, or they hire their own coach, preferably a MAPS coach. That's my goal for everyone in here. I don't want you to leave after 4 transactions. If you choose to, that's your prerogative. I want to provide enough value as your coach that you say, hey, it makes sense for me to stay because he's holding me accountable. He's helping me get better at my business. He's helping me get more leads, et cetera. All the things that a coach can do. Keeping me organized, et cetera, et cetera. Providing tools. If you are not plugging into the PC model, like some of our other agents that are in the PC group, they got to pay 10% of their deals whether they show up or not. It's required for your first 4 transactions. If you're not showing up or you're not watching the recordings, what are you paying for? If you're not coming to the sales meetings every Tuesday to hear what's going on in the market center, that's one of the reasons why you pay a split to this market center, to use this training room. Same thing with coaching or training and teaching in classes. Now, I know Bold's an investment. However, you have access to Bold. You have access to scholarships to Bold as a KW agent. You have access to KW courses when Kim's down here teaching classes, when I'm teaching classes. Ignite that started last night, Ignite After Dark. Those are all options that are available to you as a KW agent. If you are plugging in and maximizing those resources, Family Reunion, Mega Camp, the hundreds of different Facebook groups that are on Facebook that are closed KW agent Facebook groups. Part of why agent referrals are so important to me. I can guarantee there's a KW agent almost anywhere I would have a referral for. You're not going to get that at another brokerage. And if you do, they're not going to stress and train and teach you on how to work by referral the way KW does. So it's an interdependent model. The second reason why I shared this is the only way our PC GPS happens is by a group buy-in. And I want to highlight that now. So if you pull up the PC tab or the agent tab or the Excel sheet and you scroll all the way to the end, there's a PC GPS. Each of these things only happens if we're both doing our part. So a lot of these things you're going to realize require something on both of us. It requires something from the agent and something from the coach. So for example, agent accountability. I right now am taking a personal note on who's here and who's not here. Now, to be frank and to be fair, this is my third week as the PC coach. It is not fair for me to be holding everybody accountable or holding everybody attendance-wise to the schedule when we're just starting. Come November, we're going to start using an attendance tracker. And I'm going to be taking note of those of you that are plugging in or showing up Monday, Tuesday. Those are the two requireds. Now, if you can't be here because you're dual career and you've already told me that, that's okay. Watch the recording whenever you can. And I'll know if you watch the recording. I don't have to quiz you. I don't have to ask you. I'll know. Because most people come to me and ask me a question regarding what the recording was talking about. A lot of you have already done that. You weren't here when we talked about the notebooks. And now they're like, hey, I got my notebook. Can you remind me what the tabs are again? I'm like, cool. You watched the recording. Let's talk about it. Or you've heard from another agent in the room that you needed to have a 5-subject notebook. That's okay too. It's not quite as good, but it's okay. Complete the passport. You've been given the passport. It's down here. It's also a hard copy from last week. My goal is that by 90 days of being licensed, you've checked all those boxes off. And if you haven't, I'm going to help you get there and check the boxes that you need to check. Complete Life by Design form. That's optional. We'll talk about that in a second. Your GPS. We just talked about that. And your 411. Stay tuned. That's coming next week. Once you've completed those and you feel like they're in a good spot, you're going to turn them into me. And I'm going to have a folder that has all of your GPSs and 411s. So when I do a coaching call with you and I can say, Rhonda, your goal was 24 houses next year. That's 2 a month. How is January looking? You don't have anything under contract? What can I do to help you get there? Do you have enough contacts in your database? Are you hosting 2 open houses a month? Are you calling people like you should? It's very easy for us to be on the same wavelength, and I can hold you accountable. And then I can help you. Maybe you are making your contacts, you have enough people, and you're hosting open houses. Okay, well, that might be a dialogue issue. Now I can help you with scripts. It's like, great, you're doing the activities you need to be doing. Keep doing it. Some of it takes time to build up. We talked about that earlier. Some of it just doesn't happen right away. The beauty and the beast of this business is it's not an instant gratification business. That's the beast part. The beauty part is there's also no ceiling into how much you can achieve. Nowhere does it say you're only limited to this number. A friend of mine, Jen Davis, she's the vice president of, she might be the president now. She's in charge of all KW Maps. She's a buyer agent on a team. She only worked with buyers. 250 deals one year. Just buyers. You listen to KW's model, they talk about you can't do that many buyers in 1 year. She did. Now, she had help, and she had admin, and she had assistants, and she's plugged into a big team. She still crushed what this listing or this average model says as far as buyer deals. She also loves working with buyers. Training calendar. I'm going to provide you guys that, well, you already get it. Every month you get a training calendar. It gets shared by Bronte or whoever the DFI is. As your coach, I'm going to be saying, hey, I think you should be at this training this coming week or this coming 2 weeks. Anytime there's a contract class, you guys should be there, period. Technically, every agent should be there. That's a conversation I have with ALC. Same thing with Bold. There's a lot of you that I talk to individually saying, I think Bold would be impactful for you. I know it's an expensive endeavor. There's ways around that, scholarship, reimbursement, etc. A lot of you took advantage of that. Last week alone, I had 3 different productivity coaching agents talk to me about the mindset shift that Bold has provided them. 2 of them are sitting in this room. That's awesome. I shared that with Vishay, by the way. I didn't share who. I just said, hey, I had 3 PC agents say how great it's been. We're 2 weeks in. It gets better. Now it gets harder in a good way. They're going to stretch you out of your comfort zone. That's where that production comes from. Another agent, Lynn Ann, I'll say it. She asked me, she said, is the average 7 deals that comes from taking Bold, is that spread out over 6 weeks or does it build into a mountain? I said, it depends. If you're an experienced agent, it's spread out. If you're not, or you haven't been doing the right activities and you start doing them, you'll see it. Now, the cool thing is that momentum right now will carry you through the end of this year and into the start of next year. Most agents in real estate start the first quarter slow. The reason why bold is now is so the activities you do now puts things under contract in November, December, January. So you can start 2025 strong. Then your goal might get bigger, which is okay. It's a good thing. I'm not going to go through every one of these because it's in the tab. However, part of your homework is also going to be to review this. Now, if you notice, one of the things I'm going to share that I do want to go over, so agent lead generation's in the middle. A lot of this stuff we already talked about. 200 contacts is on there. DTD2 is on there. Shadowing, co-hosting, and then hosting open houses is on there. Monthly newsletter is on there. And then a social media calendar is on there. That's to come. Now, if you're in bold, you're getting a lot of social media stuff in there already. If you're ever in the option or the opportunity where you're like, do I do what Austin's saying or do I do what Bold is saying? Do what Bold is saying. It's going to be at a 10x level of whatever I'm saying. So one of the things that I want everybody in here to get to the point of doing is posting 3 days a week about real estate. There's what's called the social media ladder. Social media ladder basics is a 10-5-1. That's 10 likes or shares, 5 comments, and 1 direct message every day that you post on social media. It's technically every app of social media too. So like I'm on 3 apps. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If I'm following this ladder, I have to 10-5-1 all 3 of those. So really it's 30-15-3. Then I'm done. Then I'm done with social media. I post, I do that, and I put it away. I don't get sucked into looking at other stuff. Vishay talked about that too. When she hits her goals, whatever it may be, she's done with social media. She puts it away. That's how you don't get stuck in the rat trap or the hamster wheel. Now, once the day's over, you want to get on social media and unwind with a glass of wine and make fun of people, that's fine. Do that. Do it after your day's over with. And then this is the part I really wanted you guys to see. Market center involvement. So a lot of the feedback we've gotten already is about what's available or not available from the experienced agents. Most of this stuff is stuff that I'm going to be doing or the PC program is going to be doing. We're going to post every single week about what's going on. Smile. There's my post for today. I want the market center to know that, hey, if you're not here and you're a part of PC, or you should be, you're missing out. Even if you can't be on the calls, if you don't listen to the recording, you're missing out. We went over database stuff last week. We went over open houses yesterday. You can go back and watch that recording. It's on the YouTube channel now. We talked a lot of detail and a lot of good stuff yesterday. Now, open house program. Part of my job as your coach is to make sure the experienced agents that have open houses available are sharing that with you. They're not waiting until Friday, Saturday and going, oh, who can do an open house tomorrow? Like, that doesn't help anybody. If you can do it, great, but you're not going to get the results you want, and neither are they. Or they're going to sell their listing anyways, and that doesn't help you at all. My job is to help you guys. It's not to help them sell their listings. That's their job. So we're going to have a protocol in here where they have to be listing what's available for open by Wednesday of that week. And if they don't, my response when they ask me, hey, who can host an open house this weekend? I'm going to say, sorry, I book all mine up on Tuesday, Wednesday. All of my agents are taken. If you want to let me know next week and it's still available, I'll be happy to schedule you. Let me know by Tuesday or Wednesday, preferably Tuesday. Because what they should be doing is when they're in the sales meeting, they should be sharing it. Whether it's in that listing exchange when we get up here and talk about our listings, or put it in the dang Facebook group when you're in here on Tuesdays. Those of you that have been around me for a while, you can laugh and you've noticed I sit in that seat where my computer is. The first week of every month, I'm sending out my newsletter and my agent newsletter in the sales meeting. Don't tell Kate. It takes about 5 minutes. Usually I do it in between this 10:30 and 11 o'clock window, except for I know I'm going to be sitting there on my computer already. I might as well take advantage of being here. The third week, a note card goes out via, it's a digital postcard, but it goes out to my database while I'm sitting there. I just took a picture. My Market Center Facebook post on what's going on in the PC group is going to go out on Tuesdays because I'm sitting here coaching already. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. Now, occasionally I'll share the link to the Lead Gen Zoom or something of that nature, or I'll celebrate wins. So another thing that you're going to see down here at the bottom, when you graduate or when you have a success story, we're going to share that with the whole Market Center because I want them to know. That's cool. That's awesome. You did what you were supposed to do. Show up to the team meeting later. You get to hear one of our PC agents talk about how they got their first listing and what occurred in it and what they learned. It's Mike, by the way. I told him yesterday he's doing it, so he's real excited. I didn't prepare either, so it's okay. Does this make sense? Now, I want you to notice, too, a lot of these are very, what we call SMART goals. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're trackable. Attend 2 trainings per week, Monday and Tuesday. And if you can't attend, watch the recording. That's very specific, and it's very easy to say, did I do it? Did I not do it? Complete the passport. It's a dang checklist. You either check it or you don't. Either did it or you don't. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. For sake of time, I want to skip ahead a little bit. Now, open house signs. We talked about this yesterday. I had Mike bring one in because this is a cool strategy. You want generic signs. I'm going to be sending an email out with a couple of links on Amazon where you can get these in bulk. You can also go to Home Depot or Lowe's. The reason why I like Home Depot or Lowe's is if you have friends of yours or family members that give you gift cards for holidays, ask for Home Depot or Lowe's and then go use them and buy open house signs. Now, the reason why I'm holding this up, there is clear masking or packing tape on here. And then you can write on it. And then you can erase it. And then you can write on it again. So when it's a Saturday, you can put the date and the time. You can also write the specific address for home for sale, and then you can erase it when that contract goes under. So you're not buying individual signs for each individual property. Packing tape. Clear packing tape. Yep, that's why you can't tell it's tape. Yep. Use Windex or dry erase. Yeah. Now this is another way you can do it. Now, the reason why I'm holding this is you kind of get both sides of the coin. You get a home for sale sign, and then you get a little open house, what I call a rider or a little arrow on the top. When it's your listing, you put this in the corner. When the open house is over, you pop the top guy off, and this stays up. Now, if it's in an HOA, be compliant with whatever their HOA rules are. They may say no signs. Most HOAs limit it to Friday through Sunday. So you'll put a sign up on a Friday, you'll take it down on a Sunday. If there is no HOA, leave it up. All right. We're going to start this today. You may run out of time because I'm going to let you guys out early, but I'm going to leave mine up. So those of you that want to stay and keep working till the sales meeting, we can. We are going to start building a buyer presentation. Now I'm going to show you exactly what my buyer presentation looks like. Okay, or not. There we go. Now I've talked about this in here before. Both my buyer presentation and my listing presentation are collateral material that spur the conversation along to help me get to conversion or get an agreement signed. It is not a professional marketing piece that I'm going through line by line or that they can take and read on their own and get all the info out that they need to. Those are two different things. So when I'm having a presentation or a consultation, it is an intentional highlight Let's have conversation about it. So you can definitely have more to it. I like using them as a strong dichotomy to this. The pretty properties have a much more in-depth professional presentation. Their buyer presentation and their listing presentation, they're nice printed packets. They almost look like a magazine. And it highlights everything that they have to do. Now, the cool thing about that is they are reusable regardless of who they're meeting with. The negative about that is they're expensive. And so what I do is I made a brief one that I can use regardless of who I'm meeting with that will get me from point A to point B, which is we're sitting down together. I want you to get to know me. I get to know you, and you decide you want to work with me. So with that being said, first page looks like this. Second page looks like this. It's basically a welcome letter. It talks a little bit about what we have going on. This is the most important page I have in there, in my opinion. Now, if you Google home buying process or home buying Monopoly board, I have one of those too, you'll find this. If you want to take a picture on your phone, you can definitely reuse this one. I do not care. It's not mine. R&D does not stand for research and develop. It stands for rip and duplicate. You want to keep this simple. You don't want to make it look like it's 50 steps to buy a house. That's going to look intimidating. You want them to realize, like, oh, all I got to do is partner with you, partner with your lender, fill out what he asked me to, and then we get to start looking at houses. Sweet, let's do it. And you're already halfway done once you start house hunting. Then you're getting your keys. And this stuff's easy too. So I have a separate attachment for that. It's from Realtor.com. I think it's got 101 on there. If I put it on here, you wouldn't even be able to read it. Let's see if I can pull it up. 111. So when I go on a buyer presentation, they're also going to get one of these. Now, the reason why I use this is what they're hiring me to do. Notice how you can't read any of that? It's kind of intentional. Now, when I print it out, you can read it, but you kind of need a magnifying glass to get there. I've also printed this on legal paper before, so it does stretch it out a little bit more. The whole point of this, and this is straight from Realtor.com, the whole point of this is if you're not using an agent, you got to do all this stuff. Or just hire me and I'll do it. It's meant to be like you want to do it all yourself? Or do you want to use me? This will get included with the buyer presentation. Now, next, FAQs. I have 2 slides of FAQs. Now, some of these are preemptively answering their questions. How long does it take to find a house? That's number 2. It's probably the one I get more than anything. Short answer, it depends. Longer answer, on average, 90 days to be closed. How much does a realtor cost? I want to have that conversation. I need to update this because it says free. We're not allowed to say that anymore. Now, depending on the buyer, if I'm meeting with Mike, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this because he's analytical. He wants to know the numbers. If I'm talking with Rhonda, we're going to spend more time talking about the time it takes, maybe how much I can afford, but more importantly, I'm going to get to it in a second, we're going to talk a lot more about your wants and needs because you're going to be specific based on your personality type on what you're looking for in a house. Now, Mike's going to know that too, except for he needs to know the numbers. He needs to know the why before he knows the what. You want to get to the what, which is fine. Everybody's different. I don't want to know the why or the what. I just want to get in the damn car and go find a house. Now, costs, this is another one. This is where I'll talk about the cost of a home inspection, a deposit, typically 1% of the purchase price. Second page of FAQs. This is another big one. Do I need to put 20% down? No. Short answer. I can probably count on two hands how many times I've had a client put more than 20% down in 120 some buyer sides that I've done. Doesn't happen that often. Matter of fact, I encourage people not to more often than not, because especially with the way the market's going now, you put 10% down on a property. The negative to not putting 20% down is PMI. It's pretty much the only negative. Your mortgage is going to be a little bit higher because of private mortgage insurance. However, if it's your first house, you're probably going to move again before that PMI would come off anyways, or before you're going to recoup the 20% you invested in that house. So I would rather you put 3 to 5% down, maybe 10%, and save that extra cash and put it in an account. Matter of fact, go put it in a CD and let it gain 6% interest, and then you're making money. Because your equity is going to go up, your mortgage is going to go down, and you're going to move before you really notice a difference in that monthly payment anyways. If you can afford that monthly payment with the least amount of money down, that's usually the better move. Now, if you're buying your forever home, it's a little bit different of a conversation. However, the way the market's heading, you're going to continue to appreciate over time. Right now, we're up 8% over last year, meaning it's going to take 3 years for you to have that 20% in value gained, 24%. But then your loan to value ratio's under that 80% anyways. You can refinance and drop the PMI off. Matter of fact, rates will probably be lower then too. And so I'm serving as that expert to say, hey, here's what you should do. Now, I'm not going to stop you from putting more money down. It will make your monthly payment cheaper, and you will have more equity in your house. However, we can get there a different way, and you can save some of that money. I used to say there's more ways to skin a cat. I heard a new saying this morning. There's more ways to eat an apple, more than one ways to eat an apple. I like that better. It's not quite as gruesome. More ways to skin a fish. Oh, well, I heard it this morning and I'm taking it. More than one way to eat an apple. All right. Next, wants and needs. What can't you live without? I will physically be taking notes when I'm having this conversation with them. Rhonda, tell me about the house you're looking for. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. I'm taking notes. Anything she doesn't give me that is a searchable quantity or quality, I'm gonna ask her. Okay, do you need to have a first floor bedroom? Do you need to have a garage? Fenced backyard key? No, I can add one. All right, great. I'm gonna write that down. No, I really want to be in a townhouse. Okay, talk to me about that. What's important to you about being in a townhouse? I don't want to take care of the yard. Great. What if you were in a maintenance-free community where it was a single-family home, but they took care of the yard? Would that interest you? Yeah, if I can afford it, cool. Write that down. I'm taking notes, and we're having conversation. And then lastly, reviews. Now, next week, we're going to do the same thing with a listing presentation. I'm going to show you one. We're going to have a little bit more time because we're going to walk through it together. And then the following week, it's going to be a workshop. I think the following week might be Thanksgiving, depending on who's here. We're going to do a workshop where we're going to all mastermind and sit down together and start making ours. So today I wanted you to see one. I'll share it in the email when I share it with the recording so you have the PDF, because I know we were short on time today, so you can see what mine looks like. My client reviews for my buyer guide are people that have bought a home with me. I have some reviews of people that sold a home with me. They go in the listing presentation. If I have a review that talks about how great our marketing was and how we got top dollar for the listing and sold it at above asking in 2 days, none of that matters to the buyer yet. It will in 3 to 5 years when they would decide to move. Most of this stuff is talking about buying a house. Questions? I intentionally left the names out. If you don't believe me, Google it. Google Eden Properties. There's names on here. Look, Austin Highfield's an incredible realtor. I found him through the Homes for Heroes program back when I bought my first house, which is true. Matter of fact, this review and that review came from the same lead source. And this review is looking right now to sell and buy. That'll be the third and fourth transaction I've done with him since 2015. All right. Huh? No, they write them. They have to go to Google and leave them themselves. And then I reply to all of my reviews. I'll show you right now. This is one that's on there. Now, I will always reply to the reviews. You scroll down and you start seeing these replies. They email me. Google will email me when they leave a review. Yeah. You should have seen the hoops that I had to jump through. So, I'll keep this brief. My company, my team was previously Eden Properties RVA. That's what we were at Keller Williams Richard West. When I left Keller Williams Richard West, I was sold a false bill of goods, and I joined River City Elite Properties as one of their brokers and agents and coaches. So I paused/deleted Eden Properties. Learn from my mistakes. Don't ever do that. Keep your own brand. Because now I'm rebuilding the dang thing, and it's just Eden Properties. Technically Eden Properties VA, and I cover the whole state now. These 36 reviews, some of them carried over from previously, but most of them did not. And Google made me re-verify everything. Matter of fact, to prove that I existed, I had to do a video walking through the office downstairs to show that I existed. They said, you got to prove it's your space. I said, I have a rental suite. It's one little office. I don't own the building. They're like, we don't care. Okay. So I did a little video standing outside, showed the address, showed Keller Williams, walked up to my name tag, opened the door, showed the little room, sent it to Google. They said, great, you're good to go. It's like, okay. So sometimes that happens. If you're having trouble getting Google verified, let me or Rachel know, and we'll try to help you. Another thing you can do is on Zillow. It's just as important. I have just as many Google reviews on Zillow. Some of them are the same, some of them are not. Meaning some agents left or some clients left a review on Zillow and not on Google. The people that I liked did it on both. I definitely push Google more now. Zillow's its own brokerage and they're a competitor of ours. I used to have a sweatshirt that said Zillow Killer on it. A friend of mine started that company. All right. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns. Last little thing, I share this every time. Make sure you're keeping track of your scorecard, conversations, database additions, appointments set, appointments held, and agreements. Homework, I want a GPS from you, and I want you to review the PC GPS. The productivity GPS, I just want you to look at it. Review it. If you have feedback on it, let me know. I'm going to send it to everybody today. Marissa already has it. Sorry, tell her late. Just kidding. Life by Design is actually a pretty cool form. I'll pull it up real quick so you can see it. No, I won't. It's in my other email. It's basically a brain exercise where you write down all of your monthly bills, and then you start coming up with things that you want to pay for. What is the cost of the vacation I want to take next year? What's the cost of the new car I want? What's the cost to put my kids through college and not have to pay student loans? Blah, 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 blah. Put anything and everything you can find on there. You're going to tally it all up, and it's going to translate that to how many transactions you need to sell. Straight out of the old bold, OG bold exercise. Now that's where you're going to get your unit goal from. And it's intentionally a stretch goal. I might just put it on here too. Howdy. Okay, that's it. Right on time. Thank you. Yes.
funny about the date. So I was thinking, I don't know.
I would, yeah, I think that's going to run, mainly because you don't want to run into people traveling.
Right.
Let me pause the recording real quick.